center. I've always liked him. Now, he wasn't a 4-3 guy or a 4-4 or a 4-5 guy. He's more like a 4-7 guy that would run a 4-5 and could see the field. I mean, he'd run a 4-5 game time.
I've never seen so many whiffs in my life. People just not even touching him because he'll do this little juke and he'll know which one to stop on, because that guy is now going, whiffs, just guys falling. Yeah, amazing talent.
So I think it was 86 or 87 against the Redskins, and it was a 2-minute drill. You guys had to get to the 30-yard line to kick a field goal to win the game. And you had an injury that went, somebody fell on your knee, but your feet were killing you. You had blisters under your feet. They used tough skin back in the day.
Yeah.
Put you back out
I
there.
had new shoes on. So.
New shoes. The ligament in the knee, I believe, was.
I tore that.
You tore the ligament, but you stayed on the field because you had to get to the 30-yard line to get the 3 points to win the game. And your foot was killing you, and they took an X-ray of the foot, and no problem.
Yeah.
Nothing there.
Yeah, halftime, yeah.
And then you went on off-season.
No, you missed one.
Okay.
On second down of that drive, we're almost getting there. I hit a guy, and my finger got caught in his shirt, and it broke. And you can still see they did surgery on it here.
Oh, that's right.
And
It was
I thought, actually through my mind, I went, oh, I got to get out of here. I can't block with this. And then I thought, I got feet that have no skin on them. I got a knee that's flopping around on me. I've got an ankle that I don't know what's wrong, but it's huge and swollen and hurts. And I'm going to run out of there. Oh, and they gave me a shot in my back at halftime. And I'm going to go running over there and go, my pinky broke. No, I stayed in the game. And the sacrifice was not worth it. We didn't get a field goal.
You didn't get the field goal. You lost the game.
Yeah.
The ankle was misdiagnosed. I don't know how many times. They finally found when you came back the following year, I believe it swelled up tremendously.
Yeah.
Did you go outside for the X-ray?
At this time, the X-ray they didn't find was the Raiders again, and he was 80-some years old. So it was his.
The doctor was 87 years old.
Right.
Right.
And he did this, and this, and that was it. And so it happened in training camp the next year. It just got to the point where I couldn't put my shoes on. This is the 87 season. I couldn't walk. And they sent me for the x-rays, the doctor. And I came back and he said, well, meet in your room and show you the x-rays. And no, I decided I was going to go get a second opinion. So
outside of their organization.
Right. So I went to Mike Davis, and who was our team union rep. And
Now, time out 1 second. You already knew about the Marcus's situation where he wouldn't take the shot.
No,
this was before.
that was after I retired.
Okay. So
and this is why I told him that. So anyway, the doctor brings the x-rays over. I told Mike, I want you there. I want you to hear him and see what happens. Because it's my word against his, what's going on here. So he walks in. He puts the thing up on the wall behind the lights behind it. And you can see it very clear. And I'm looking at it. He says, see, there's no break. I don't see any break. But there were like 5 of these popcorn looking things in there, which I knew were loose bodies. And I said, well, Doc, what are those things? They weren't in there before. And he says, oh, those are just loose bodies. They're nowhere near where you're saying your pain is. And I said to him finally, after he was done explaining everything, I said, well, Doc, I'm going to go get a second opinion. And he said, well, who are you going to go see? And I said, well, the union recommends this guy. And he goes, oh, they're going to tell you you need surgery. And I said, well, maybe I need surgery. This guy's a doctor too. And then I told him, just to burn him, I really wouldn't go to this guy. the team doctor, Curt, what's his name? Anyway, it was a team doctor for the Rams. And just to piss him off. Because then I'm going to go to the Rams team doctor. And he was like, ugh. And his face was, the cheeks were getting a little red. And then I said, and then I'm going to go to the doctor in down on the ocean right there in that little LA town, Marina Del Rey. And he was a guy that did Walton's ankle.
Okay.
And so I said, and he said again, oh, they're just all going to tell you need surgery. I said, well, be as it may, it's a second opinion. And so, yeah, I decided after I talked to them all, all of them said, there is no way I can diagnose this with these x-rays you brought me. They just don't, they're two angles. They don't have, what I see in your ankle, something's going wrong. All of them said that. So I ended up choosing the guy, Marina Del Rey. I just got a good vibe from him. And he says the first thing we need to do is get a CAT scan. They didn't have MRIs then. He said we can do a tomogram or a CAT scan. The tomogram just takes pictures slowly. The CAT scan is more of is a better diagnostic tool. So they took the CAT scan, and then I had a follow-up appointment 2 days later. I went in the office and he said, Curt, he said, your ankle is broken. It's not only broken, but your talus is broken all the way through. And the talus is this bone that sits, your heel bone comes off of it. Your toe bones, or this bone here in the front, and then your toes. That's another joint. This is a joint. And then your leg goes into it, another joint. And this bone was going like this all the time. That's where those bone spurs came from. That's why it was so bad swollen, because all these joints were just hashed because they'd just been, grinding. And every time I took that stupid shot and went out there and played, it caused it to get worse. To the point where I couldn't even walk by the time I went to him. And so he did surgery. And
But Curt, from the time you actually broke it to the time it was properly diagnosed, was it a season?
Probably,
was it a year?
I think at in the end of the season of 86, or the middle, because that season they put me on injury reserve, 86. And then, and that hurt too, because if I stayed healthy for 3 games, I'd have got a 20 grand bonus, and that Washington game was the second game. So it's like, oh, okay, yep, throw that in there as a disappointment. So anyway, from there probably I started really feeling it, and it just kept getting worse and worse. And then so I had a guy pray about it. I didn't. We had a little group, a Christian that would meet and do Bible study, and so we came up with a bright idea that they do healings. Why don't we do it? Why don't we try? And so we get there. Dean read a little bit about it, but there we are, 4 guys, football players, and we sit around a table like this, and we're all looking at each other. And someone says, "Well, should you take your shoe off?" I said, "Well, yeah, that'd be good. Let me take my shoe and sock off." Okay. Should we put it on the table? Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's put it up on the table. And they said, "Well, do we touch? Do we put our hands on?" I mean, we're stumbling through this, trying to figure it out. And Dean gets a phone call. And he says, "Oh, wow, yeah. Oh, she asked him, I was making tea, and I got the sense and the word that you're doing something over there and you need some help," which blew me away. That's one of those moments where you go, ooh, yeah, I think there's something to this. And so she said, "Oh, just give her the phone. And so I said, hello. And she says, what's wrong with your leg? I told her, and she says, okay, well, let's do this. Let's pray. And she started praying and praying and praying. And sorry.
That's okay.
Boom. Yeah, I'm tired of this microphone on my face. I started praying. She did. And I swear to goodness that I felt this tingling going up. And people can say I'm making it up, but I'm not. I was going to see a therapist 3 times a week that was trying to loosen my ankle because it was stuck. It wouldn't move. And so it felt a lot better to me. And I went to the therapist the next time, and he starts moving it. He said, whoa, what did you do to this thing? And I said, nothing. We just prayed about it. Prayed. No, nothing. Prayer. And so that got me to the point where it just got better and better, a little better every day. And I could run on it. And I could do those things in the off season where there wasn't much pressure. Then I get into training camp and somebody crunches on it again, and I'm hoping that nothing happens. And then we go through almost a week of training, or a week of training camp. And finally it was getting worse and worse and worse. And that's when I woke up one day and I couldn't walk. So that's when all that happened. But it was, to answer your question, it was a year and a
It was
half.
a year and a half. It was misdiagnosed. You had the surgery where they put screws in, correct?
Yes, that's what Daly did.
Okay.
Daly did that, and that was to fix it. Then I needed the screw taken out. And I thought, well, I mean, can't screw up a screw taken out. So I went to the team doctor. It wouldn't cost anything and all that. And so I get Rosenfeld, or his helper, which I didn't find out that couple, 3 years before, Rosenfeld had lost his surgical privileges because of so many mistakes he was making in the surgeries. And I didn't know that. They didn't tell anybody on the team that they won't even let him touch people. And they hid that. So he had this partner, Nicola, that ended up being the surgeon then. And so it was probably him that did it. I don't know. Rosenfeld was supervising. And so they take it out, and about 2 weeks later, it just starts filling up with something on the outside where the screw was put in and taken out. And it just started getting really sore and filling up. And then it was probably about this big, and you could push on it and fluid would come out that hole. And I had a fever. And so we went to the doctor, Nicola, and I found out it was a staph infection. And I was in the hospital for a good month dealing with that. And that helped make the bone worse. All the grinding on it made it bad, but that made it worse.
Well,
and
good.
so then I was on a course of going downhill.
A year and a half before it was properly diagnosed. That must have been hell. I mean, how did you sleep at night? Was it painkillers? Was it?
Yeah,
And
painkillers, and they give you.
do you remember, was it
Alcine.
Percodan back then, or was it
Percocet.
Percocet.
Yeah.
So you're living in pain
Yep.
for over a year. You're taking Percocet.
And then after the prayer, I, didn't take it, but I would take regular painkillers.
But what I'm getting at is addictions.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. I had a bout with Tylenol 3, and that was after all that, and it's so easy because you're in pain, and in the locker room, they had these Tiger Balms, which had Tiger Balm in it, and one, which they'd move from place to place, was filled to the brim with, it didn't have Percocet, you got that from the doctor, but Tylenol 4, which is strong, Tylenol 3, which is strong, and those were all in there. They had painkillers in there. They had all kinds of muscle relaxers, then sleeping pills and stuff in there. Percocet you had to get from the doctor. Now the crazy thing is when we go on road games, they would bring that with them. And after the game, the film guy would carry it down and just go, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And there was a group in the back, played poker every flight. They go, what do you need? And they would get a ton because that's what they bet with. It was Eurasia, a ton, all three. Now, I was Percocet if the doctor gave you some.
Okay.
And he gave me some once. And he says, yeah, that looks really bad. I'm going to give you some Percocet. He reached in his pocket and he pulled out the pills, not in anything, just pills in his pocket. Some were kind of crushed. And he didn't count or anything. Gave me about 6 or 7 pills. And I'm thinking, what the heck are they doing in his pocket? And what I took from that is he takes them, you know. So it was a climate, I'm trying to think of the word, a culture of dealing with things by taking pills or shots.
But,
so yeah, there's a lot of people
so
that.
your story's documented, but the addiction side of it you don't hear about.
Yeah.
And so we hear stories these days of kids, not kids, they're full-grown men now that have CTE. And I always wonder, without mentioning names, if this particular person, the only thing that if he does have CTE, if the Percodan or the meth or whatever it may be balances him. Right. So I just see there's so many. We have the CTE issue out there, but the addiction issue, which I think they made the changes, the proper changes.
Yeah, now.
But for when you played, I mean, there's CEOs that are in jail for treating their employees without looking out for their best interest.
Right.
It's the same thing, really. So you go on, your career is now ended, you've been misdiagnosed.
Right.
And to get you back on track, taking the screws out, which you thought would be a simple procedure, an infection.
Yeah, my career wasn't over then.
Okay.
I was still thinking about going back. Mm-hmm. But after the infection, I spent 3 months with home IVs. We had to get up in the middle of the night. They had to be refrigerated. We put them in ourselves and they teach you how to do it. And every week they change the port. So they come out and they stick you with this long needle. It's painful. And then you just you're tied to when you're supposed to do the IV. And it's about 3 times. 3 times during the day and 1 time in the middle of the night. And
this is a way of life.
Yeah, for those 3 months, that was it. And I finally said to Pam then, I said, if I ever mention that I'm going to play football again, just put me out of my misery. Kill me. I didn't mean to actually kill me, but that was a way to say, I'm never playing again. I am never playing again. And so I made a decision. Funny thing is, my agent called. I was at the end of that contract, and a guy, Steve Ottmeyer, who was the assistant GM, went over and took the GM job at San Diego, and he called my agent and wanted to offer me a contract to come play for them. And my agent called, and I said, no way in Hades am I going to do that. And he said, well, here's the numbers. I said, I don't care about the numbers. I'm done. And not only physically, just spiritually. Mm-hmm. You know those injuries, when you have one, like the back injury, I see it as climbing a mountain to get to the top. And all the players are doing that, to try and get to the top. Whether the top is the Pro Bowl, All-Pro, Hall of Fame, all of that stuff. You are winning your games, being the best player you can be for your team, whatever the motivation is, you are climbing. And it's a hard climb. And then you get injured and you're out for a year, a season, or several months. just claw down and fall down below all those guys, and all you're looking at is the bottoms of their feet. And so when you come back from injury, you work twice as hard just to catch up. And so you're just clawing to catch up, and that's exhausting. And then you get up there and you start climbing and passing them a little bit, and you're, all right, I'm on my way now. And then I go into training camp in 1985. First practice with contact. I did that play to left side, 19. And I was the first guy out there. And before the play, you see what's going on. And I knew the safety would be the force from the outside. And it's Van McElroy, and he's a little bullet. He hit hard. And so I knew we were going to have a collision. And he was also a very good friend of mine, and I just wanted to blow him up because I'd never hear the end of it if he knocked me down. So I'm out there. I'm running as fast as I can, which is basically 5 flat, you know. Anyway, 5 flat. So I'm going as fast as I can. Van's running at probably a 4.6, and he's going as fast as he can. And there's a point where we collide, and I'm going sideways, he's coming front, and I hit him with this shoulder, and my head hits his head, and we go flying. And when we land, all of a sudden I get sick to my stomach, and kind of get this weird feeling, like out of body, you know, like just a weird, I can't describe it.
Jello head type?
Yeah, kind of. And what happened was I hit him, he hit me. We went that way, thank goodness. But when we landed, the momentum, he was flat on my arm, and I flipped over him, and my arm didn't go. And so there's a scar up here. I ended up with a fracture all the way through this arm. And that was, I had worked my hardest off season to get back, and I felt great. And that happened. And so they got me in a van and drove me down with all my gear on to the hospital and did surgery. And I was out for another 5 weeks, just clawing to get back in there. And finally they activated me the 5th week, and I started alternating with a guy and ended up winning my starting job back for the last third of the season. And that just is, it's so exhausting. And then this ankle thing started, and I'm fighting to try and get back. And I just had given everything. I mean, and it shocked me how much they didn't really, you know, I was done. I felt like they took me in, and when they got there, I always loved playing in Kansas City because they had this huge screen and they do Budweiser ads. And while you're in the huddle, you can't help but look up and watch, and they go, and you're dying of thirst. You see that, and you're like, and they pour it in a glass. So that's how I felt. Like I was that fresh, just icy, you know, frigid, and then, and there I am. And then you start doing this, just pouring you out. And they go, well, you need to get rid of a little more. We need you to play. We need you to play. We need you to play. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I was done. And they just went crunch, next one, you know, which is the business. But it just was so, I gave so much of myself that, and it just didn't mean anything to them. And it shouldn't, actually. But they preach loyalty, and once a Raider, always a Raider. And you just feel like you're cast out. Now that they treat us wonderful. But, yeah, it was done. Spiritually, I was just at the end. So the good thing was I'd split my salary in two that year. And so I'd have enough. I decided to start saving, you know, big time for the future. So I split it in two. and we could live easily off of what I kept. And then I had a year to try and figure out what I wanted to do. And that I ended up finding working with kids, and it was the greatest job I ever had.
And we'll get to that in a minute. If we can go back to the injury one more time, one of the surgeries, I think you had an extreme reaction to the anesthesia.
Yes.
I mean, extreme.
Yeah.
And I think that was a point. Was that when you said, I'm never playing football again? Don't mention the word football.
Yeah, that was the point where I said, I'm never having a surgery again. And it goes right with never playing football again, because you're going to have a surgery. Yeah, this guy comes in, and he rolls in on his chair, and he goes, ooh, I'm going to have to hit you with my biggest hammer. And I said, what? He said, I am going to give you more than regular people. And that was kind of his accent.
What was the hammer? The drug?
The hammer is
That was
what
the
knocks you out.
anesthesiologist.
Yeah. When I woke up,
That's comforting.
yeah, when I woke up, I could not open my eyes. I could, the sounds, it was the worst headache I've ever had in my life. And where they go, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. And I thought I knew a 10, but I had no clue of a 10 up to that point. My scale shifted. Worst pain imaginable? Yeah, that's it. And it's funny, I go in for these appointments and you hear these people, scale 1 to 10, especially if you're going to the emergency room or something at the hospital. Oh, it's a 10. Okay, well, we'll be right back. Then texting, looking things up, and yeah, the football, you'll find out what a 10 is. Anyway, that was for years. Throwing up. Like I threw up every 30 minutes. Yeah, it was horrible. Huh?
Did this go on for days?
Days.
Yeah. And did they ever attribute that to the hammer, as the anesthesiologist put it?
Yeah, they said,
the big hammer?
Yeah, they said, it's a reaction to the anesthesia. And I was like, yeah. Find me that little guy rolling around, would you?
So I
show
believe
him.
it was your 13th surgery on your ankle, foot.
Before.
You were in your mid-30s. Do I have that right?
Right,
Okay, so now you have to have your foot and ankle amputated.
right. I was
Okay.
really fortunate. I went to the ankle guru, and he teaches all over the world, and he was at Harborview, and so I got to see him, and I'm like, finally it'll get fixed. I had had 10 surgeries up to that point, and he said, there's nothing we can do, we're going to fuse your entire ankle. So they did a regular fusion, and you stay off it for however long you need to, and as soon as I got up and stepped, it just pained immediately, and the fusion had, my ankle had kind of crumbled a bit, broken there. So he goes, okay, so now we have to step it up a little bit. We're going to put some screws across. And he did that, and the same thing happened. So now we're on the third one, and he said, this is our final shot. And he showed me what they were going to put up there. It was this thing that looked like a screw, kind of, but it was about that tall, about that, it looked like a spike for a railroad or something. And he said, we're going to run that through your heel and up to into your femur or whatever that is. I don't know what that's called. So that was it. And so they did that. It was weird looking at X-ray, but sure as poop. Sorry. It broke. And so that was then. He said, we can't do anything more for you. You have two choices. You can live in a wheelchair the rest of your life, or crutches and finally a wheelchair, or we can amputate the leg, and you'll get another artificial leg, and you'll be able to walk and function pretty well. And so it took me a while, but I decided that I wanted to walk, function. My kids were Still
You
young.
decided to have it amputated?
Yeah. I was,
And that was a 9-hour surgery, correct?
yeah.
And
Usually guys get in a wreck or something and they wake up and it's gone. I knew what to expect and it was still hard.
but still, when you did wake up, I'm sorry to bring this up if it's
Sorry.
difficult, but you felt like you wiggled your toes.
Oh yeah, it
and
was
you
weird.
thought maybe it's still there.
Yep,
And you looked down and
nothing.
yeah.
And I cried.
So that's the phantom
Yeah.
feeling.
I still feel like I can wiggle my toes, which is so weird. Itches
you
sometimes.
still have the phantom.
Yeah, with it, and then I have the phantom pain kind that just shocks that go down in there. But yeah, not like it's really weird anymore. But if I concentrate, the muscles that wiggle my toes will work, and it feels like maybe they're still there down there. It's just a strange concept
So
that
you
your
go
body remembers.
I don't know what to say. You go from being the best in the world, which is what the Super Bowl is, to being an amputee.